Hello, dog lovers. Did you know that about 70% of dog owners believe in at least one myth about their pets? Surprising, isn't it? These misconceptions can affect not only our perception of dogs, but also how we interact with them and care for them. Today we will debunk the most common myths about dogs that are firmly rooted in our minds. Some of them might surprise you, and some might even make you reconsider your approach to raising your four-legged friend. Let's start with one of the most common misconceptions that many take at face value. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. This myth has become so deeply ingrained in our culture that it has turned into a common saying. But what does science say? Research shows that dogs maintain their ability to learn throughout their entire lives. Moreover, many elderly dogs even concentrate better on tasks than their younger counterparts. Adult and elderly dogs often demonstrate amazing learning abilities. They can not only master new commands, but also adapt to changes in their environment. Of course, older dogs may need a little more time to learn new skills due to natural age-related changes, but saying that learning is impossible is completely incorrect. Have you tried teaching new tricks to your adult pet? The results might pleasantly surprise you. The second myth we'll debunk today: dogs wag their tails when they're happy. Sounds logical, doesn't it? But in reality, tail wagging is a much more complex body language than many think. Dogs use their tails to express a whole range of emotions, from joy and excitement to uncertainty, fear, and even aggression. Pay attention to exactly how a dog wags its tail. Research shows that wagging to the right usually indicates positive emotions, while wagging to the left indicates negative ones. Fast, wide movements with a relaxed body indeed often indicate joy, but a high, tense tail that twitches quickly may signal alertness or even aggression, and a lowered, slowly moving tail might indicate uncertainty or fear. Amazing how complex dog body language can be, isn't it? The third myth that deserves our attention: dogs see the world in black and white. For a long time, it was believed that our four-legged friends live in a monochrome world. However, modern research disproves this misconception. Dogs do see colors, just their color perception differs from human perception. Humans have 3 types of cones in the retina of the eye that allow us to see the entire spectrum of colors. Dogs have only 2 types of cones, making them dichromats. They perceive the world roughly the same way as people with red-green color blindness. Dogs can distinguish blue and yellow colors well, but red, orange, and green merge into yellowish shades for them. However, dogs have much better developed night vision and the ability to notice movement evolutionary advantages necessary for hunting. So next time, when choosing a toy for your pet, prefer blue or yellow. Your dog will appreciate it. A wet dog nose is a sign of health, and a dry one indicates illness. Who hasn't heard of this folk diagnostic method? However, veterinarians are quick to disappoint us. The wetness of a dog's nose is not a reliable indicator of health. A dog's nose naturally changes its moisture throughout the day. After sleeping, the nose is often dry. It can also dry out when near heat sources or in hot weather. Some dogs are simply genetically predisposed to having a drier nose. The real signs of illness are changes in behavior, appetite, energy levels, as well as the presence of unusual discharge from the nose or eyes. If you're concerned about your pet's health, it's better to pay attention to these symptoms rather than the wetness of the nose. Have you ever checked your dog's nose when worried about its health? The fifth myth we'll examine today: 1 year of a dog's life equals 7 human years. This is perhaps one of the most widespread myths about dogs that we've heard since childhood. However, modern veterinary science offers a much more complex and accurate formula for age conversion. Dogs develop much faster than humans in the first years of life. A 1-year-old dog developmentally corresponds to approximately a 15-year-old teenager, not a 7-year-old child. By 2 years, a dog reaches the developmental level of a 24-year-old human. After that, the aging rate slows down and depends on the size and breed of the dog. Small breeds age more slowly than large ones. For example, a 10-year-old Chihuahua may biologically correspond to a 50-year-old human, while a 10-year-old Great Dane corresponds to a 70-year-old. Interestingly, a recent study of dog DNA proposed an even more complex formula based on epigenetic changes. Science doesn't stand still. Dogs eat grass when they're sick. Many owners worry when they notice their pet chewing grass during walks. It's believed that dogs do this to induce vomiting when they have an upset stomach. However, research shows that eating grass is normal behavior for dogs, and most do it regularly while being perfectly healthy. Only in 25% of cases do dogs vomit after eating grass. Scientists suggest that dogs may eat grass for several reasons: to get additional fiber, due to taste preferences, or simply following the ancient instincts of their ancestors who were omnivores. Some experts even believe it may be a form of self-medication for minor digestive disorders or a way to get rid of intestinal parasites. So if your dog occasionally chews grass but otherwise behaves normally, there's probably nothing to worry about. The seventh myth that needs debunking. Dogs feel guilty when scolded for misbehavior. A familiar picture. You return home and discover a torn pillow or a puddle on the floor, and your pet sits with a guilty lowered head, pressed ears, avoiding eye contact. It seems that the dog understands what it has done and feels remorse. But what does science say? Research shows that the so-called guilty look is not an expression of remorse, but a reaction to your displeasure. In an experiment conducted by scientists, dogs demonstrated guilty behavior when the owner scolded them, regardless of whether they had committed the mischief or not. Dogs have simply learned that certain signals, lowered head, pressed ears, help reduce aggression from the dominant pack member, in this case, the human. It's more fear of punishment and a desire for reconciliation rather than a sense of guilt. It's amazing how often we attribute human emotions to dogs, isn't it? Dominant breed dogs need strict upbringing to recognize the owner as the pack leader. This myth has spawned an entire industry of harsh training methods based on domination and suppression. However, modern studies of wolves and dogs show that this theory is largely mistaken. First, domestic dogs are genetically and behaviorally different from wolves, the result of thousands of years of domestication. Second, even in wolf packs, hierarchy is based not so much on aggression and domination as on family relationships, where the alpha pair are simply the parents. Modern dog trainers and behavioral veterinarians recommend positive reinforcement methods, which are not only more effective, but also strengthen the bond between dog and human. Harsh training methods can cause fear and aggression rather than respect and obedience. What do you think? Is it worth reconsidering the approach to dog training? Ninth myth: a dog with a dry and warm nose is sick. This myth is closely related to what we discussed earlier about nose moisture, but deserves separate attention. The temperature and moisture of a dog's nose naturally change throughout the day and depend on many factors: activity, environment, time of day, and even hydration level. After sleeping, a dog's nose is often warm and dry, which is absolutely normal. The nose can also warm up after physical activity or when in a warm room. The real signs of illness are lethargy, refusal to eat, changes in behavior, coughing, sneezing, unusual discharge from the eyes or nose. If you're concerned about your pet's health, pay attention to these symptoms, not the temperature of the nose. Remember, only a veterinarian can make the correct diagnosis. Dogs only distinguish the volume of voice, not words. For a long time, it was believed that dogs respond exclusively to intonation and volume, not to the meaning of words. However, modern research using neuroimaging proves otherwise. Scientists from Hungary conducted an experiment using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, and found that dogs process speech similarly to humans. The left hemisphere of a dog's brain analyzes the words themselves, while the right hemisphere processes intonation. Positive emotions arise only when both factors coincide. A familiar word is pronounced with positive intonation. This explains why dogs can learn hundreds of words and commands, and some, particularly gifted pets, even thousands. So when you talk to your dog, remember, it really understands more than we're used to thinking. Myth 11. Dogs mark territory out of spite or revenge. Many owners discovering a puddle in the wrong place, especially after leaving the dog alone or punishing it, consider this an act of revenge or an expression of character. However, behavioral veterinarians claim that dogs are not capable of such complex emotional manipulation. Marking in the house is usually associated with medical problems, urinary tract infections, kidney problems, insufficient training, separation anxiety, or territorial behavior. In males, this may be hormonally conditioned, especially if they are not neutered. Dogs live in the present and are not capable of planning revenge for past grievances. If your pet has started marking in the house, it's better to consult a veterinarian to rule out medical causes, and then a dog trainer for behavior correction. Understanding the true motives of a dog's behavior will help solve the problem much more effectively than attributing human motives to it. Dogs see the world only in black and white tones. We've already partially discussed this myth, but let's delve into the details. Research shows that dogs see the world not in black and white, but in a limited color range similar to deuteranopia in humans, a form of color blindness where red and green colors are poorly distinguished. Dogs have two types of color receptors, cones, in the retina instead of three, as humans do. They distinguish blue and yellow colors well, but red, orange, and green merge into yellowish shades for them. However, dogs have many more rods receptors responsible for perceiving light in low-light conditions. Thanks to this, dogs see in the dark 4 to 5 times better than humans. Additionally, dogs' field of vision is wider than humans, approximately 250 degrees versus 180, and their ability to notice movement is much higher. So next time, when choosing a toy for your dog, remember, blue and yellow objects will stand out much better for it than red or green ones. 13th myth, dogs eat grass to induce vomiting when poisoned. We've already touched on this common misconception, but it's worth considering in more detail. A study conducted by the University of California showed that only 25% of dogs that eat grass subsequently experience vomiting, and less than 10% show signs of illness beforehand. Most dogs eat grass while being completely healthy and do so regularly. Scientists suggest several possible reasons. It may be instinctive behavior inherited from wild ancestors who were omnivores, a way to get additional fiber, or simply because they like the taste or texture of certain plants. Some experts believe that eating grass may help in the natural cleansing of the digestive system, or elimination of intestinal parasites. If your dog occasionally chews grass, but otherwise behaves normally, this is likely natural behavior that should not cause concern. Dogs sweat only through the pads of their paws. Many owners have heard that dogs don't sweat like humans, but cool down only through breathing and the pads of their paws. This is only partially true. Dogs do have sweat glands on the pads of their paws, but this is not the only method of thermoregulation. The main cooling method for dogs is thermal breathing, often called panting, during which they breathe rapidly with an open mouth, evaporating moisture from the tongue and respiratory tract. However, dogs have sweat glands not only on their paws, but throughout their body. These are called apocrine glands. They secrete pheromones involved in chemical communication between dogs, not sweat for cooling. Additionally, dogs regulate body temperature through the expansion of blood vessels, especially in the ears and muzzle, as well as by changing behavior-seeking shade, cool surfaces, or water. That's why it's so important to provide dogs with access to shade and water in hot weather, and never leave them in closed cars. And the last myth we'll debunk today: dogs see the world in slow motion. There's an opinion that dogs perceive movement more slowly than humans, so for them, everything happens as if in slow motion. This misconception is based on the fact that dogs better notice quick movements and can react to them lightning fast. In fact, research shows that dogs perceive the world at approximately the same frame rate as humans. However, they do have a better developed ability to notice movement and react to it faster, an evolutionary advantage necessary for hunting. Additionally, dogs better distinguish flickering images. If for a human, a movie at 24 frames per second seems smooth, a dog may perceive it as a series of separate images. That's why some dogs don't like watching television or react to it in strange ways. Modern televisions with high refresh rates look much more realistic to dogs than older models. So we've examined 15 common myths about dogs. I hope this information was useful and interesting for you. Understanding the true nature of our four-legged friends helps us take better care of them and build more harmonious relationships. And now a question for discussion in the comments. Which myth about dogs surprised you the most, and will this information change your interaction with your pet? Perhaps you have your own observations that confirm or refute some of these myths. If you liked the video, don't forget to like it. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe and turn on the bell to not miss new episodes. And if you know someone who also loves dogs, share this video with them. It might change their perception of four-legged friends. In the next episode, we'll touch on an equally interesting topic that will make you look at your pet in a completely new way. Until then, take care of your furry friends, and remember, the more we know about dogs, the better we understand their unique canine world. See you next time.